Hello there, and welcome to Marriage Unmasked. Today we're talking about how nice guys don't make great husbands. And when we're talking about nice, a lot of people can get that confused. This isn't about the fruits of the Spirit. So this isn't like kindness and gentleness and self-control and patience and things like that. The niceness that we're talking about here is the nice guy syndrome. I don't know if you've heard about that. There's a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, which is actually a really excellent book on this topic, and it's in our resource list on our website if you want to check that out. But the niceness that we're talking about here is more of it's manipulative. It's like a niceness that has an agenda behind it. It's really passivity that's hiding, trying to present itself as being kind.
But I don't think any nice guy would think that they're being manipulative.
No,
they would not handle it well to be told that they're being manipulative.
No, they would not. It's sneaky because, I was a nice guy for many years, and I still struggle with tendencies into nice guy syndrome, really. And so it is sneaky because a nice guy doesn't always see that he's doing it. He's not fully aware of the agenda that's happening behind his niceness.
I think a lot of nice guys are getting pats on the back. Like, I don't know, when Adam was showing up really strongly this way, he was getting all the pats on the back. Like, oh, you're so nice, Adam, good job. Adam always, he does this. And he was getting all of his like words of affirmation, which is what he wants from people who are outside of a close relationship with him. They don't actually know what it's like, right? For me, being his wife, this kind of passivity places a heavy burden on a wife of a nice guy. And that's why, the title, Nice Guys Don't Make Great Husbands, because it's true. You as a wife then carry this burden of having to make all the decisions and having to manage everything while he's just like, okay, whatever you want. Sure, he doesn't have a vision and a mission. And so he leaves that to his wife to handle it all. And it absolutely kills attraction.
Yeah, it destroys the polarity in the relationship because she doesn't have anything strong to lean into or relax into. He doesn't have a backbone. He's not setting boundaries. He's very much whatever you want, honey. There's nothing strong there for her to know, okay, this is who this guy is. The problem is with a nice guy, he's so obsessed with making everybody happy around him. He's so obsessed with his image and how he looks to his wife, so needy and dependent on her to like him too, that he doesn't have a strong, centered, grounded stance of who he is and what he wants and where he's going in life. And that creates a terrible dynamic in a marriage. It really does. That was us. This showed up a lot in the way that I was parenting the kids too, because I was trying to nice guy people please them as well. Cara would set a firm boundary, and I would sometimes walk that back and not be as firm and not be as strong in this is what really needs to happen, and not really discipline in the way that needed to happen in that situation. The kids would leave their stuff all over the place. And I remember times where I would just start cleaning it up myself. Rather than making them do it, rather than saying, hey, kids, you need to clean this stuff up. So I'm trying to people please her by not letting her get upset because this stuff gets picked up, and people please the kids because, well, they're not going to have to deal with the situation that they created. So I'm doing this kind of stuff in order to feel good about myself and try to keep the peace in the family rather than be strong and stand up for dude, kids, you need to pick up this stuff. You need to take responsibility for the things that you've done. And it's just one little example of something that was going on many different levels in our relationship and with the kids and parenting.
Yeah. And so as a wife, you're constantly having to be the parent. And sometimes even try to teach him, this is what I need you to do as a father. This is what I need you to do as a husband. And then, a lot of times for a nice guy, it's like, yeah. Whoa, somebody's not applauding me, then I'm going to freak out and I'm going to get defensive.
Yeah, the energy would be really off in our relationship dynamic then, because now she's correcting, now she's parenting, now she's showing some criticism or whatever. She's not happy with me. And so alarm bells are going off inside, oh no, I've got to somehow appease her now. And it was just this really sad, kind of sick way of looking at things, just because I had never learned to really have that backbone or really take a stand on things, and in many ways was very confused about who I actually was.
Yeah, and I think it's important to talk about what is going on under the surface for guys in this more nice guy energy. I think a lot of guys who are dealing with this, especially grew up in this latest generation where there's not actually a lot of strong masculine men in their lives, right? Maybe a grandpa, but they weren't giving a really strong example of masculinity. And I know that's the case for you. Instead, they came into this thinking that a good husband is a nice guy, right? A good husband is nice. That's the whole like happy wife, happy life.
Yes.
Like, where does that come from, right? Don't rock the boat. Don't upset her. And so that's where this kind of nice guy, and deeper than that is, you kind of touched on a little bit when you talk about the manipulation. It's like, nice guys, they come with this very needy energy. They're giving off the appearance to people who don't know them as like, oh, look, he's always so nice. He's so pleasant. But underneath is this neediness, graspiness to have people like him. And there's wounds there, right? You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And, we just did a podcast on, what the number one responsibility of a husband is in marriage, and it's strength that brings safety. This is the exact opposite of that. I mean, that is why this really collapses, because there's no strength there. There is no stability there, and it doesn't provide any safety for her. It kind of leaves her out fending for herself. And instead, he's coming to the relationship needy and trying to grasp things. And what wounds that are really behind that, it's really with your identity, because if you don't have a strong sense of who you are, and a very strong relationship with God too, really, and knowing who you are in him, knowing that you are strong, that God made you strong, it's kind of like running on programming where this is just the way you think you need to operate in order to be good in the world.
To be okay.
To be okay, right? Yeah, to be okay, to be safe.
You're going to be okay if you feel like a good boy, if you feel like you're getting that approval.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of the childhood dynamic that creates this as well, where, again, I kind of grew up in a house where happy wife, happy life was kind of the mantra, and peace was the number one priority at all times. And peace was created by making mom happy. And so I had to be a good boy so that mom was happy. As I've unpacked some of that, there's some resentment and there's some stuff down there that's deep because of that, because you think that you had to show up a certain way. You had to always perform and be good in order to create peace in the family, in order that mom was happy and dad was doing the same thing. That was the example. That was how it worked. And so then you get in a marriage and you think that you can do that in the marriage, and it does not work. It is not healthy. It is not helpful. It creates a lack of safety in the marriage. And I want to be careful, because nice guy can be a label too. And I don't think that's always helpful, because it's not like I was operating 100% in a manipulative nice guy thing. Like, there's always a mix. It's a lot more complicated than that. So I don't love labels like the label narcissist or the label nice guy. I think we can get a lot of information from that. We can get a lot of awareness from that. But I don't want anybody to use this as a label that you put on someone and then use that as ammunition against them either. I think it's important to label the patterns, not the person.
Yeah, I mean, that can be hurtful. Anytime someone calls you by something you struggle with, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what this brings into the marriage is, like, when he is acting in this more passive way, then the wife becomes the leader, right? She's the one making decisions. She has the vision. She pushing for growth. I hear from so many wives. I just had a wife tell me today that I was coaching, and she's like, I'm the spiritual leader. She actually said she was disgusted by her husband. She didn't want to drink out of the same glass of water. Like, that's how disgusted she is by him. And it's because it comes from these kind of places where a wife is so exhausted. She's so sick and tired of having to take this more masculine role and, push for these things and lead in these areas and be in charge of healing. And I was working with another wife today, and she was talking about how, she's done all this work and she thinks her husband also needs to do the work. And I'm not saying that's her responsibility to assign to him, but and he's not doing it. She doesn't think he's ever going to do it, right? So we, as wives, then, when we're pushed into this role, we think we need to be in charge of the healing for everybody and the communication. And when I first met Adam, I thought this was going to be fine. I thought it was good, like, because my first impression is like a lot of people's first impression. Oh, he's nice, and I'll be safe with him. I was like, at least he's not controlling. At least he's not abusive. But then the stress just starts to pile on as you have to carry this heaviness that just wasn't meant for you alone to carry. And that led to my femininity getting buried under years of resentment and exhaustion from having to take on this other role. And attraction just absolutely disappeared. And then, like I was saying before, when I would bring something up to him, it would blow his mind and he would take it so personally because he's used to everybody just applauding and telling him how nice he is and all that. And so if somebody, me, says to him, I don't appreciate that. I need you to stop doing that. This isn't helpful. He's freaking out. Then he's not showing up as a nice guy. The anger's coming out, the frustration.
All that resentment that's piled up inside too. Trying to do everything in order to make other people happy is going to create resentment. It's going to come out in those kind of moments when that is being met by criticism or even just an honest desire for change. It triggers some of that resentment out into the open, and then the nice guy becomes a not so nice guy.
Right. And so it was just so hard for me then because I'm trying to bring something to him that needs attention. Like I am drowning here. And instead of hearing that, he is only hearing from his wounds of, I need to be liked, I need your approval, and now I don't have it, and now I'm going to freak out. I felt like I was bashing my head against a wall because I was trying to have there be change here.
Right.
But yet it wasn't happening because it was only met with defensiveness.
Yeah, and in many ways I felt the same way because I was still operating from this system. I was thinking this was the way. I'm thinking this is the way to be in a marriage, that I need to be this nice guy. And so I was very much stuck in this unhealthy mindset, needing a lot of growth, needing a lot of awareness, and just not getting out of that state, which was super painful.
Yeah. So the lack of the polarity, right? The masculine feminine imbalance here, it just ruined attraction.
It kills it because there's no grounding strength there. There's nothing to lean into, like I said before. And feminine energy really responds to strength. It responds to that safety. It thrives in that environment. And when it's unsafe, then the femininity becomes masculine energy to protect the marriage, to try to do all the things. And there's no attraction then. I mean, you can picture it this way too. If you're like driving a car, asking the person in the passenger seat, well, there's like 16 different ways to go. Which way should we take? And I want you to be happy. Like, why don't you pick the radio station? Should I turn here or should I turn there? Which restaurant do you want to go to next? And which gas station should we fill up in? And like that constant neediness of wanting direction and help from the other. Well, who's really driving the car? The passenger, and the passenger's exhausted trying to run everything through the other person. And so that's there's no attraction there. Like that feminine energy is going to respond very differently if somebody's driving the car. They know where they're going. They know what they want. They aren't falling asleep at the wheel, not asking a million questions. And so that's like a man who's grounded in his strength, and he has direction, and he has goals, and he has purpose, and he's able to provide protection and safety and some grounded strength for his wife. It's a very different kind of car ride if that's the case, if the guy is really leading and driving and very capable and confident in what he's doing behind the wheel.
Because for a wife, if her husband is over there driving and he starts veering off the road because he's falling asleep or because he's not paying attention or because he doesn't know where they're going and he starts to turn at the wrong turn, she reaches over and she grabs the steering wheel and she has to control where they're going. And that's why so many wives then end up in this more controlling posture, because she's trying to keep life functioning and she's trying to bring structure and she's trying to protect from the chaos. And so I felt more like the manager. I have to manage him. Right. I did not feel like his lover, right? I wanted to be joyful and relaxed. I wanted to be radiant in my femininity and lean into that strength, but it wasn't there. It just wasn't there.
Yeah, so the guy needs to learn how to drive that car and drive it well and know where he's going and be confident in what he's doing. And then when she takes over the wheel, you get mad, right? So like that's what would happen. I would get angry because she's trying to control things, because no man wants to feel controlled. Deep down, a man wants to be in control. A man wants to be confident. He wants to be strong, and he knows that that's his role. And yet when she starts to take over things, it starts to show him where he's weak. It starts to show him what he's not being strong in. And that can be very threatening for a man. And he can take things personally, and he can blow up, and he can get even more unsafe for her, which can cause even more of a distance and a lack of attraction. In the Bible, the story of Adam and Eve, right at the beginning, the fall into sin, we have a man stepping into passivity. The Bible says clearly the woman was deceived and she ate. The man wasn't deceived, but he was there. He was right there with her, and he took and he ate too. So even though he knew better, even though he wasn't deceived in the situation, he passively went along with what was going on rather than have some backbone and stand strong and choose a wiser, more God-pleasing response to that situation. It's very interesting how the first man really fell into that in his relationship with his wife. He fell into this passive, people-pleasing, sort of nice guy role right there at the fall into sin.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, even in churches I've seen, there is a lack of masculine leadership. The church I grew up in, I mean, it was like, that was such a massive gap.
Yeah,
There was women who were taking over a lot of the serving roles because the men just were missing. But I think also one of the things that people a lot of times think is that Jesus, this passive guy, just made everybody happy, and he was so nice. But actually Jesus was very purpose driven. He was very bold. He said what needed to be said, and he confronted the things that needed to be confronted. He wasn't just sitting around letting people walk all over him and make decisions for him.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Bible says the man is the head of the house as Christ is the head of the church. Well, can you just imagine if Jesus just did whatever the people wanted him to do when he was here? What did they want? They wanted a king. They wanted an earthly king. They wanted a ruler. If he would have just, whatever you guys want, you want me to be an earthly king? Okay, I'll be an earthly king. He didn't do that, right? Because he knew what our greatest need was. It wasn't what we wanted. What they wanted at that time was an earthly ruler, but what they needed was a savior from their sins. And so he, very laser focused and very purposeful in his mission, he wasn't giving them what they wanted. He was giving them what they needed. And he was very clear on that and very strong. I mean, he is like, of course, the perfect example of masculinity, really, because he was both tender and kind, and he was also very wise, and he was also extremely strong and very set in his purpose and his mission on earth.
Yeah, and I think that's what attracted so many people to him, right? He obviously had the authority of God, which is so attractive, and he was loving in a way that no one had ever experienced. So attractive. But also, I think that was also his strength, and his purpose and all that was probably really, really attractive. And one of the most attractive qualities for a man isn't perfection, right? We don't need you to be perfect.
Yeah.
But it's direction, right? It's oh man, it's like an instant turn on. Like a man who's like, this is where I'm going, this is what I want to accomplish. Like that is a turn on, at least for me, because for so long that was missing.
Absolutely.
So it's absolutely an extra turn on now. That's what we want. We don't need you or expect you to be perfect. Yeah. We're not perfect, but that is such a big part of it, is having that direction, having that purpose, that conviction, right? Having convictions that you really stand strong in. That is attractive.
Yeah, so it's really important as a man then to ask those questions of yourself, to really get clear on what is my purpose? Where am I going as a man? What is my mission? What is the vision that I have for myself as a man? What is the vision that I have for my family? God has given you special gifts and talents. He's given you purpose. He's given you a life full of experiences that you can draw on to distill down and find out why am I here? What is this mission that God has for me in my life? And then you go after that with gusto, and you go after that with everything that you have and everything that you are. And you'd go after that with God's strength and God's help coursing through you. And that is incredibly attractive for your wife. Here's a man who actually knows what he wants, where he's going, who he is, and he's leading the way, and he's setting boundaries, and he is a man on a mission. That's incredibly, incredibly important. So you need to ask those questions. You need to get to the bottom of what is that for you as a man, and then go after it.
Yeah, because when a man takes ownership of his life, his family, his faith, that is like a big sigh of relief for his wife. She's going to melt, honestly. It just feels so good for her nervous system. And that is the opposite of what's happening with the nice guy stuff. It's like her nervous system is on overdrive. She is over functioning. She feels like she has the weight of the world on her shoulders. It's like she has to fix it all, manage it all of that. And that is the complete opposite. So you stepping into that is so, so powerful for your wife, and she's just going to melt.
Yeah. And The biggest danger is really the victim mindset. That is something that really creeps into men, is this victim mindset that keeps you stuck in the passivity. It keeps your engine in neutral. You're not going anywhere because you are seeing her and her energy as the problem instead of taking ownership for what you can control and who you are showing up as in the relationship. And so that victim energy, I know for me, it was getting to the bottom of that victim energy and purging that out that really started to make some change in who I was and how I was showing up in the relationship.
Yeah. So if you're a husband listening or you're a wife, there's no shame here. I don't want you to feel ashamed. If you're a man and you're struggling with this, you don't need to feel ashamed at all. And if you're a wife, you don't need to feel ashamed of how this nice guy kind of behavior has felt for you and the ways that you've had to show up. The goal is for you to move towards restoration, right? It's for a man, it's for you to come back to that, like Adam was talking about, that strong identity, and come back to who you really are as a man and find that purpose and that vision and that mission. And for a wife, it's to relax back into your femininity, and you actually don't need to wait for him. You can already start to do that. And actually, I have a really powerful event coming up on April 8th and 9th. It's called Come Back to You. And it is for wives who are feeling like they have been stuck in survival mode for so long, and they're resentful and they are frustrated and they feel like at the end of their rope. Your physical health has probably been suffering. I know mine did when we were in this season. You don't feel like the woman that you used to feel like. And this whole event, the purpose is to help you to heal and to invite God's love, not just keeping it in your head, knowing, I'm loved. Yeah, I know that. But bringing it into your heart in this felt way that is transformational, right? God's love actually transforms when we feel it deep, deep, deep in our soul. And I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm going to help you get your joy back, your pleasure back as a woman. It's going to be so much fun and so, so powerful. You do not want to miss it. So the link is in the show notes. Make sure you grab your spot. And we are cheering you on. We support you guys. Like we said, we walked through this. It was horrible. It was hard. Don't feel like you have to do this alone. Reach out, guys. Reach out if you need some support. Absolutely. We're here. We want to cheer you on. We love you. And we're here to help you walk through this with you if you need it. So we hope this podcast was really helpful. Go ahead, rate, review. We'd love to hear your comments. If you have any ideas for future podcasts, something you're going through right now you'd love to hear us talk about, let us know, because we're here to serve you. And we will see you next week.